Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So, hello, everybody. I am Anthony, your internet older brother.
And I'm Gabby, the silent middle child.
And just for those of you watching on YouTube or otherwise, feeling a little under the weather today. So, excuse me if I seem a little low energy, but
hmm
we'll get through this.
We're going to do our best. He's going to power through.
And we're going to follow our normal format. If this is your first time joining us, we do these live Q&As once a
hmm
week. Right now, it's on Wednesday nights at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time.
Yep.
We have where we answer questions from our Patreon members that allow us to do everything that we're doing.
Yeah.
And in fact, a big announcement for those who have not seen it already is that I am officially going part-time to produce content like this.
Woohoo!
You may have noticed that we're posting more videos than usual in the last couple of days, and that is thanks to everybody here on Patreon that is supporting us. So a big thank you. Literally couldn't do this without you. I know we say that every week, but it
hmm
is true. So we're gonna start off. I do post a thread every week where members who cannot make it to the live or just want to ask questions in advance can ask those questions.
hmm
So we're gonna go over those first, and then we've got a bunch of hot topics that we'll cover from the week, and of course we also have our wonderful chat here,
Yep.
which we will be following and taking questions from as well.
That's right.
So thank you again to everybody joining us now, and let's go ahead and get started.
Yep. And I just want to add, if you are joining us live as one of our wonderful members, go ahead and put your questions in the chat, and we will have our moderator look out for them and tag them for us so that we can come back to them if we don't answer them right away. All right. So let's get into one of our questions from one of our super sibs.
Let me interrupt you real quick.
Sure.
Yeah, Daniel's not
Oh,
with us here today. He's working.
so nice of you to ask.
Yes, we love him. He will be continuing back with us, but he was busy tonight.
If you guys don't know, Daniel is an actor.
Yes,
And he is actually doing an acting job today, which is super fun.
very
So
exciting.
that is why he's not with us today. He's our entertainment sibling,
Yeah,
the
he's
youngest, of course.
uh,
So sending him lots of good wishes on that.
all
All right.
right.
Getting
Into the
to our
questions.
question from one of our super sibs, Kim. Thank you, Kim. What are your thoughts on the government possibly interfering with streaming services like YouTube in an effort to suppress information?
A well-timed question. I think everybody was thinking that after
Yeah.
YouTube was inaccessible, or at least the main page was inaccessible last night.
Suspicious timing.
Conveniently, at the same time that the Colbert Show aired their interview with Representative Tallarico,
Yes.
which CBS refused to allow them to air on
Yes.
air for bogus reasons. And I will say I don't have any evidence one way or the other, but I personally think that was just coincidence. Especially because it seems like it was just the front page that was
I
down.
think
Like
it was
people could still
coincidence.
access it directly. Um, to answer the broader question, as far as do I think governments are interfering in streaming service, the U.S. government is interfering in streaming services like that. I don't think they're interfering like that. As far as like actually shutting it down and making it inaccessible, I wouldn't put it past the Trump administration at that point. But people
Yeah.
will revolt if they can't access the media.
Right.
Um,
I mean, realistically,
Yeah.
a platform like YouTube probably loses a lot of revenue from an outage like that.
yeah.
And so I can't imagine they would do that to themselves over something like
Yeah.
the Colbert
So the
issue.
manipulation that we're going to see is less in the form of actually turning it off and more in what we're seeing already, right? The purchase of TikTok and the complete change of the algorithm. We've talked before about how, we got started on TikTok.
Yep.
Our big video was 20 million views.
Ironically, that was a
yeah.
video on war with Iran.
Yeah, and for a long time, we were performing better on TikTok than
Yes.
Instagram, and Instagram I think would have taken over eventually, anyways. But we are being and a lot of leftist creators, including I think Aaron Parnas has talked about it.
Oh, yeah.
A bunch of them have talked about.
They've all talked about it.
We're being heavily suppressed on TikTok, and that's the type of interference I think we're gonna see
Yeah.
through regulation and passing laws about what type of content is and is allowed, and then just paying off the companies to change their algorithms to suppress content.
Yeah. And if you guys will just indulge me for a second so I can vent about TikTok.
Yeah.
Because it's so frustrating. I literally every day see our follower count go up and down. It'll go to like 715 and then it's like back down to 685. Then it's like up to 709, back down to 695. And I'm like, this is not real people subscribing and unsubscribing
Yeah.
every day that's happening. And then, I see videos where it had 1 million or 2 million views and all of a sudden it has like 650,000 views.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is going on? I've honestly stopped caring a little bit.
Yeah.
But I know this is not just us. This is happening across the board with left creators and political creators. So
Absolutely, and thankfully, we haven't seen a lot of that on other platforms yet, and,
no,
but, it wouldn't surprise me if we start to see it too. Instagram is, after all, owned by Meta and Mark
yeah,
Zuckerberg,
I'm
who's a
actually surprised
big
how
Trump
well they
ally,
do on
so, yeah,
Instagram.
I'm surprised that there is still so much ability to talk about this,
Hmm.
but, that's why we have platforms like Patreon, and we're also setting up Substack and other platforms that allow people who are our core followers like you to access, not just for the paid content, but you can also access our free content there as well.
That's right.
Mhm. But,
Okay.
certainly a big concern.
And then another question from Kim. Do you think the government will try to get access to our social media accounts to monitor anyone who criticizes the Trump regime?
I mean, they already do have
Yeah,
access to
we
that.
talked about this this
If you're
week.
on a social media platform, like, the platform exists to sell your data, and they'll sell it to the government just as much as anybody else. If it's a free service, you're the product, right? So,
Hmm.
they may be trying to formalize that access through various, like, laws and regulations and buying off companies, so it's easier for them to get access to it. But, you should not be under the illusion that you are on social media and have any form of privacy.
Well, also, what about the story we covered this week where they're going to be selling our data basically to was it the DHS? In order to
Um
they're going to be giving our data on people who criticize ICE
Yeah, so that
to the
yeah, so
DHS.
that was the Department of
Not
Homeland.
selling, but
Yeah,
providing.
providing,
Yeah.
excuse me. Yeah, that was the Department of Homeland Security has been issuing administrative, subpoenas, which
Right.
are basically requests, just like the administrative warrants they use to try and access people's houses.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like a judicial order.
Right.
But they've been issuing these subpoenas to, major social media companies, asking for information on people that are critical of ICE or that are, reporting ICE locations,
Yeah.
which is legal to do. Um, and three of those companies, that's, Google, Reddit, and Meta, have complied. Discord has. We don't know if Discord specifically complied, but
Right.
they're doing their own thing, which we've talked about. So,
Right.
yeah, I would not assume on any social media platform that you have any form of privacy. You should act always as if anything you do on the internet is, publicly available.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. I see you guys. Did they have it? Oh, I thought they could see Miso in the background. Oh, yeah, they can. They can see Miso in the background.
Yeah.
That's our other cat, you guys. You don't see her very often. Her name's Miso, like miso soup.
Yeah. He still comes by every now and then. In fact, I think she was in one of my recent videos. People were
Yeah,
posting
she
that
was
she
in the
jumped up on the
background.
dresser. Yeah,
Everybody loves a cat.
of course.
Okay.
Got to pay the cat tax.
Question from Big Sib Ben. Thank you, Ben. We know we live in a two-party system. As someone who does not like the Democrats but have to hold my nose and exercise harm reduction, do you think we should be putting financial and attention behind David Hiogs, I think it's pronounced, organization to oust Democrats and save seats for more progressive candidates? Okay, let me sum that up because that was a little long of a question, but this is a topic that I've been asking you about all week.
Yeah.
Because this is being talked about on the left right now between the leftists and the liberals, right? There's a divide about, should we be pushing for a progressive candidate or, supporting some of the more corporate Democrats?
Yeah, it's a great question, and there was the what was it, debate recently with
Oh, so it was you don't watch any of this.
yeah,
Basically, it was Hassan Piker,
Hassan Piker. That's what it was.
doing an interview with Jennifer. What's her last name? I should know it.
Yeah.
Jennifer, you guys know who I'm talking about. And there's a clip of it where he basically said he's not going to vote for Gavin Newsom. And of course, people ripped him apart.
Yeah.
It's obviously a nuanced issue.
So yeah, it's this is something that's been a big topic for a while. The idea of, like, should we support progressives or third party candidates, or the Democrat in the election and harm reduction and all of
Yeah.
that. And while I wasn't able to find that specific organization that was mentioned, I'm not sure if it was maybe just misspelled or whatnot.
Yeah.
The general idea is the same, which is that should we be dedicating resources at this time to progressive candidates? And the answer is absolutely yes. This, the time to not do that is in November.
Yeah.
Right, when
there's no chance.
when the election is happening, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking about midterms, right? We're talking about, like, presidential candidates and stuff.
Yeah.
We're 2 years out from the presidential election, And while I generally don't think that we should be focusing on the presidential election right now, as like a means to save us, we need to be focusing on what's happening now.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of long-term planning about like progressive candidates, yeah, now is the time to do it while there is time to build those platforms.
Right.
And
A lot of people make the, I think, unfair comparison with how a lot of leftists did not vote for Kamala because Kamala was thrown in with very little time
mhm,
to campaign, after Joe Biden stepped down.
mhm.
uh, and it was like a last minute change where we as the left needed to come together to make a decision that was urgent.
Yeah.
But we're not in that situation anymore.
We're not in that situation. I don't think that was the only factor because there was a lot of excitement when Kamala was announced. I mean, we all saw the DNC.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think at least part of that was that her campaign, what little time there was disappointing to a lot of people.
Yes.
With the typical DNC casting like the very wide net, and they were having like Liz Cheney and people come up, and
Right.
I think that left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. And of course, there was the whole conflict between Israel and Palestine happening,
Yeah.
um, which contributed to that. But uh, you know that what happened in the last election is also different from where we are now,
Mhm.
right? Because while a lot of us, everybody here, I'd assume, understood what electing Trump would mean.
Yes.
We have to remember that a large percentage of the American population is not involved in politics at all,
Right.
and
The biggest party of
yeah,
all,
and
non-voters.
may have not voted, didn't vote for Trump, any of that, even in this last election,
Right.
right? And I don't think a lot of Americans on any side understood what a second Trump presidency would mean, even if those of us who are politically aware did.
Yes.
We're not in the same position now that we were in
2024.
2024, right? The disguise has come off,
Yes.
right? That the Trump administration is not even pretending to adhere to anything like democracy anymore, and that changes how we judge the Democrats as well, right? It was one thing to run a moderate Democrat, and I do think Kamala is closer to moderate than progressive.
I agree.
Right. It is one thing to run a moderate Democrat when we were still functioning in what seemed like a semi normal thing. But the Democrats have seen now, time and time again, that the base does not want a moderate candidate.
Mhm.
We've seen over the last year moderate Democrats be completely ineffective at fighting the Trump administration.
Right.
Right. To the point that I think it's fair to call some of them controlled opposition, including
Mhm.
Schumer and Jeffries Hakeem.
Yeah.
Hakeem Jeffries?
Hakeem Jeffries.
Excuse me. A little tired. And so when we're talking about like centrist candidates,
Mhm.
if it's my opinion now that if the Democrats put a centrist candidate into the presidency in 2028,
Mhm.
that is a complete failure of the system,
Yeah.
right? That is so intentionally a failure of the system that I couldn't see it as anything else besides controlled opposition.
Yeah. I mean, you have crowds en masse having signs that say abolish ICE.
Yeah. So either they wise up or the
Mhm.
Democrats are not the Democrats. They're just another arm of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who you vote for at that point.
Right.
But now, that's something for 2028. Right now is the time to get progressives in power. We have 2 years to do it. We're seeing progressive being elected into office. It's clearly possible. So now is the time to be funding these things. Now is the time to be taking the risks so that when we come around to another presidential election or even midterms,
Yeah.
we have a base of powerful progressives to push for people in higher elections. That's basically what the Tea Party did,
Mhm.
right? The Tea Party was kind of like the precursor to MAGA, and they were not happy with the status quo of like all of the old Republicans in power and the old guard, and so they elected a bunch of uh, Tea Party candidates into lower offices, into the House, into Senate, and then they basically took over the party from the ground up.
Mhm.
So that is what we have to do. We have to take over the party from the ground up, and now is the time to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Great answer. It's a difficult issue. I'm gonna move this just a little bit closer.
Yeah.
Can you help me? It's a difficult issue because nobody really wants to make a statement either way. I know there's a lot of people who, when they hear, "Oh, I'm not going to vote for
Yeah.
Gavin Newsom or whoever it may be," they're really upset by that, and the other way as well.
And,
So
and I think, the biggest issue in this next presidential election, and really in a lot of elections, is prosecution of Trump and everyone supporting him,
which should have been done in
right?
the last
We,
administration,
we,
in
we've
Biden's
had so many
administration.
times in the US, Tad Stormer talks about this all the time, where we're in the place we're in now because these terrible things happen and there are no consequences for it,
Yeah,
right? The Civil War happened, everybody just waved it off in the favor of unity, right?
right.
Nixon was kicked out of office and they pardoned him to, make peace, whatever. And we see this time and time again that there's no consequences for people like Trump doing these things. And then, so of course, they're empowered to do it again later. So
Right.
we need to see consequences, and that's only going to happen from a progressive candidate. Anybody they run that is not calling for consequences is, to start with, not a progressive candidate.
Yeah.
And if they run that, then the Democrats aren't Democrats. They're just Republicans.
No, I definitely agree with that.
with
That a
another name.
corporate Democrat is not going
Yeah.
to, enforce consequences for
Yeah.
what's been done. Okay, let's move on to some of our other questions here. We have a question from Samantha, one of our big sibs. Can you highlight what's going on in Iran and Jordan? I see we have a few naval carriers stationed in the Middle East.
Yeah, so this was something we just put out a video out today for. Samantha actually asked me if I should delete her question, but I think it's a great topic to address anyways. So yeah, there is a lot happening in the Middle East right now. We have currently the Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier there. And it looks like the Gerald R. Ford carrier, which is our newest, most modern carrier, is moving from its current position in the Caribbean, where it was harassing Venezuela, over to the Middle East as well. And it's rare to have two aircraft carriers in one place.
Yeah.
A single aircraft carrier group, not necessarily just the carrier, but a carrier group is capable of taking down a lot of small nations by itself.
Wow.
They're mobile bases, right?
Right.
And so, just moving one of these things into position is a huge commitment. So I think it is something we have to take seriously. There's also a lot of buildup of, military aircraft in, I want to say, Jordan and some of our allied countries around Iran. And, supply lines are being set up. Something is going down.
Yes.
And there's a lot of indications that, people are thinking that there may be a strike within the next couple of weeks. Probably on a Friday, knowing how the Trump administration likes to operate after the stock markets close.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, things happen on Fridays.
What's the benefit to them there?
The market can't react immediately.
Wow.
But
I didn't notice that.
yeah, but there's enough happening that it's, we're past the point of, oh, this is a bluff.
So you think we may be going to war with Iran?
I think it's a very real possibility.
Yeah.
That
is so unfortunate.
There are, peace talks happening. In fact, one just happened yesterday where both the Trump administration and the ambassador from Iran were saying that they were generally productive, but I don't trust either of those organizations to tell the truth. So who knows? Who knows what will happen? I would act right now as if we are going to attack Iran. There's a lot of reasons for Trump to do it. Number one, of course, being distraction from the Epstein files. We say
the biggest reason.
We say this time and time again, right? War is a dictator's tool to distract the masses.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you have the typical Republican reasons of military-industrial complex and oil. In fact, the reason that we overthrew Iran's government in, I want to say, the 50s, 59. Iran's had a very legitimate government in the 50s, and we overthrew them because they nationalized their oil, and we're basically trying to move away from oil. It's very similar to what's happened in Venezuela, right? Venezuela nationalized their oil and was one of the founding members of OPEC, which opposes kind of U.S. oil control, and so they got invaded. So there's a lot of reasons for him to do it. There's not a lot of reasons not to, unless the people revolt.
And what is going to happen next if we do strike Iran? I mean, could there potentially be a strike and then not a war to follow, or is that going to be it? It's going to be full blown war.
I don't think that. I don't think that this is going to be a 1-day thing like Venezuela.
Okay.
Even the Trump administration is calling it, a couple of weeks operation. And realistically, I think that it's going to be longer than that if we attack them because, Iran is one of the countries that, while I don't think they can beat the U.S. military, I don't think there's anybody that unilaterally can beat the U.S. military, except maybe China, just
Mhm.
because of their production capacity. Um, Iran is one of the main countries that's been supplying Russia with drones for the war in Ukraine. And so they have a lot of knowledge about drone warfare, which has been shown to be effective
Wow.
against um, Western militaries. In some previous, there were some like war drills that were done recently
Yeah.
where some Ukrainians, a Ukrainian drone team did very well against a Western NATO simulated force
Yeah.
because of their drone experience. So Iran, they may not have the direct battlefield experience with that like
Mhm.
Russia and Ukraine do, but they've certainly been supplying drones, and I think that they could be more effective against the U.S. military than anticipated,
Mhm.
especially considering that some of our most powerful military minds may have resigned or been forced out of office by the Trump
Right.
administration. We have a bunch of
Several of
idiots in
them.
charge. So I think it will drag out. I don't know if they're interested in getting into a ground war, but
I mean, are we really
it's
talking
not going to
about
be a
Pete
nothing
Hegseth, like,
conflict.
making the decisions about this? Because he's a Fox News host.
Yeah, well, that's the position we're in, right?
That's
That's
really scary
so
to me
so
because
it's going to be, and this is something that Congress could do something about, right?
yeah.
Congress controls declarations of war. The Trump
Mhm.
administration is going to try and skirt around it, just like they did with Iran, using
With
this idea of
Venezuela.
like
Yeah.
special Venezuela. Thank you. This idea of like, oh, it's just a special military operations. The
Right.
exact same thing Russia said, right? Russia said Ukraine was going to be a 3-day war. We're almost 4 years out. Yeah,
Mhm.
almost 4 years out now. I think within a week or two.
Last question on this.
Yeah.
Do you think that in the case that we do go to war with Iran, are the American people generally in danger of like strikes on civilian areas?
I don't think so, but
Because I maybe that's a dumb question,
yeah,
but I feel like it's what a lot of people think about, when they hear we're going to war with another country.
no, I don't think so. If that happened, it would be a huge failure of intelligence, which is considering who's in charge, not entirely out of reason, but
Because our national security
yeah,
is at
but
risk too.
it would be some type of. It's not something that I would expect to happen regularly. Like Iran is not capable of striking the
Hmm.
U.S. mainland directly unless they smuggled in like a sleeper cell or something.
Yeah.
So no, it's not that, but it's taxpayer money being used to fund a war in the Middle East when we're struggling at home, and when like I mentioned in the short video, Trump administration is supposed to be against this idea of like us being the global peacekeepers and all of that. So
Right.
um, yeah, there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
I think it's certainly possible that we go to war with them within the next few weeks.
Wow. Wow. I really do hope that doesn't distract from what's going on with the Epstein files because I feel like we are at a
Hmm.
turning point with the Epstein files.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to another question from one of our little sibs, Tina.
Mhm.
Did you hear about Project Saltbox and how do you think we can use this site to stay informed?
Yeah. So Project Saltbox, I actually didn't know about it. I looked it up when the question was asked.
Yeah.
Project Saltbox is a organization, and I want to say it was in one of the states.
Yeah.
It's basically an anti-ICE organization
Okay.
that examines key federal tells where ICE is moving.
Yeah.
So it doesn't rely just on like actual sightings of ICE, but they monitor things like federal, supply reports and purchases,
Oh,
and the
interesting.
things that indicate that a federal operation is coming to an area even before there's actually boots on the ground.
Right.
And so they're basically like an early warning for where ICE is going to be. It's great. It's a great initiative. Beyond that, I'm not super familiar with it, but we certainly need more things like that
Ar-
as part of the resistance and helping to fight back against
Aren't those
ICE.
kinds of it's an app?
It's a website. I
Gotcha.
don't know that.
Because I feel like apps that were, trying to predict where ICE is, all got shut down or,
Yeah. Well, this is all using at least from what I was able to review, it's all using publicly available information.
Yeah.
So it's it's something that really information anybody has access to through public data requests and things like that. We'll see.
Okay. Just cruising asks, did the Arizona Senate Bill 1570 pass today? Do you know?
No, it did not pass yet, and that is the bill that is. Arizona is trying to pass a law to basically require ICE to be at all their polling locations,
Mm-hmm.
which is illegal, by the way. The Voting Rights Act, I want to say it's the Voting Rights Act, um, says that no, is it the Voting Rights Act? It's not the
Yeah.
Constitution.
No, it's the Voting Rights Act.
The Voting Rights Act says
Yeah.
that you can't have any type of military at polling locations. It's illegal based on U.S. law, and I expect it will be challenged. But of course, that doesn't mean as much with the current Supreme Court.
Mhm.
But it has not passed as of yet. So I'm kind of waiting for more information on that before we put out a video.
Yeah, and I think we know at this point that like ICE is going to be at the polls in certain critical areas.
I mean, I wouldn't take it for granted. Like, I certainly think they're going to try, but we shouldn't accept it as fact.
Yeah,
it's something we need to be resisting happening.
We'll talk about it a little bit more later. But like one of the things I was noting for one of our topics to discuss is like Kristi Noem, making statements that imply that she's going to be using ICE to try to control the votes.
Yeah, it's not a new idea, and it's one that Trump and Noem have put forth quite a few times. So it's certainly something they're going to try, but I don't think it's something that it's not something we should take for granted. It's just happening, and we all have to deal with it. It's something we should be resisting. And let's take a couple questions from chat before we go into the hot topic we've been.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there anything you recommend you've been watching? Second here.
Someone says, thank you for turning away from Discord. Yeah, it's just a decision that we had to make.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here, guys. Sorry, we're just getting used to some new technology here. Just come down. Okay. I forgot to ask you guys if you saw that Noam had a plane pulled. Yeah, that's actually one of the. Let's go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah. So basically, there was a story this week where Kristi Noem apparently pulled the DHS from rescuing a Coast Guard member. No, not the DHS. Hold on. It was the Coast Guard.
Yeah, they pulled the Coast Guard.
They pulled the Coast Guard from their efforts in trying to rescue a 23-year-old Coast Guard member who had fallen overboard, and the person was not found.
Yeah.
Like, she pulled the efforts away from the Coast Guard so they could focus on immigration enforcement.
Yeah.
And the person supposedly died.
Yeah.
Or is not found.
Not surprising at all to me.
Yeah.
It's very typical of Noam. The whole DHS operation, obviously ICE and everything else under her control is, to use the phrase that I use a lot, cruelty is the point.
Right.
And they certainly don't care about the lives of the military. They never have. Trump talks awfully about military service members all the time, especially veterans or those who have been injured. And I don't expect any of the people that he's appointed to be any better than that.
Well, Kristi Noem deports veterans.
Yeah, and for all of ICE's claims of deporting millions of people, they're not coming even close to that,
right?
Because it was always unrealistic to start with, and they're desperately trying to meet quotas that are impossible to meet, and of course they're going to throw anybody under the bus if they can. It's important to acknowledge, right? If they don't find this guy, it's essentially murder.
Yes,
what she's done, right? She may not have been the one that threw him overboard, but stopping rescue efforts is her accepting that somebody's probably going to die.
Right.
Right. Would they have found him? Who knows?
Yeah.
But she's ensuring that he's dead because they stopped rescue efforts to go look for people that it's not like ICE has been deporting a lot of violent people or anything like that. It's been
but also the article noted that it's affected morale amongst Coast Guard members and DHS.
Yeah. I mean, morale is tanking all across DHS.
Morale is really tanking in the DHS.
ICE morale, it's garbage, which is great. Love to hear it.
Yeah.
It should be garbage. They should feel bad.
Absolutely.
They should be aware all of the United States hates them.
Yeah.
And Coast Guard, I feel bad that they're getting
well, they're being
too,
dragged into this.
But
it seems like.
Hopefully, it encourages them to resist.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of illegal orders being thrown around, and it's important that those orders are not followed.
Right.
Right. In fact, the law requires that they're not followed. So.
All right, we just have a couple more questions here, and then we'll get into some topics of the week. So from Pamela, thoughts on some Democrats boycotting SOTU and holding a rally. How effective will this be? It was a State of the Union.
State of the Union address. Yeah. So there's been an announcement that I think 12 Democrats are planning on boycotting Trump's State of the Union address.
Not enough.
Which is in about a week. It's on the 24th, I think. First of all, it's not enough. It's also kind of just...
it's like nothing.
It's demonstrative. Like boycotting the State of the
Yeah.
Union is nothing new. It happens all the time. It's like a very like accepted
It's so
form.
weak.
It's an accepted form of protest.
Yeah. That's
Um,
all they do.
and on one hand, all the Democrats should be boycotting the State of the Union
Yeah,
address.
why is even
Mhm.
one Democratic representative attending the State of
Yeah.
the Union?
So it should be all of them. And then
And as one creator pointed out online, why are they not having like their own speeches going on somewhere else that people can tune into?
some of them are joining rallies.
I hope so.
So, what matters to me is not boycotting the State of the Union, although I think that's kind of like a minimum requirement.
Yes.
I think it is what else they're doing at the time.
Yeah.
If they're going, if they're leading rallies and protests that are real rallies and protests at the time, then that's probably that's an effective use of their time.
Yes.
But if they're just walking out, then
not even walking out, they're just not showing up.
yeah, pretty much.
It'd be better actually if they showed up and then all walked out. That would at least be like an active protest.
Oki says anything on the teacher in Savannah who died of ICE using died in the high speed vehicle chase.
Yeah, that was very sad.
Yeah, it's awful that it happened. There was a teacher that was killed in Savannah because ICE got into a high speed chase with somebody they were trying to apprehend.
Yeah.
And that person hit and killed a teacher who was in her car, who
Horrible.
was obviously completely unrelated to what was going on. And I fault ICE for that, right? Is it the exact same as them? How they killed Renee and Alex? No, but
are they even trained to do a high speed chase?
They're not
of
trained,
course not.
They're not trained to do anything. They're pulling these people off the streets with no training. We've seen there's been a bunch of journalist investigative incidents, right? They're literally getting no training. There was that one journalist that applied and was hired with like no background check. They tried to send her off to do things. And there's a reason that professionals, police, don't get involved in high speed chases anymore.
Exactly.
Most of the time, and that's because unless the person themselves is more dangerous than getting in the chase, like maybe they're an armed serial killer. Okay, that's justified to chase them down. The danger to the public is not worth it in most cases to apprehend people for reasons like this.
Yeah.
I think we all remember, well, those of us that are old enough, we remember seeing like chases on TV in like the 90s.
Absolutely. I had a whole TikTok phase where I would watch them on live.
Yeah. And there's a reason that you mostly don't see that anymore.
Yeah.
And the fact that ICE, who again are not, as you said, are not trained professionals, are doing things like this, it's no surprise.
You're talking about thugs driving probably like over 100 miles an hour to chase someone who is just trying to exist.
Exactly. So that that death is on them too.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get to our question from Bonnie, Little Sib. Will Congress need to approve an attack/war in Iran, or is the admin framing in a way like with Venezuela that they could bypass them? We kind of touched on this.
Yeah, like a lot of things, yes. Legally, Congress does need to approve any type of war. The president does not have the powers to declare war based on the Constitution. There is some interpretation that's been used by presidents in both administrations where they can take military action. Limited military action to accomplish goals that need to be accomplished quickly. So, for example, we saw Obama use that to take out Bin Laden during his presidency.
Yeah.
But anything that requires significant funding has to be approved by Congress. So the legal requirement is there, but like a lot of things with the Trump administration, unless Congress decides to exercise its power to stop him, they can effectively approve the war by doing nothing.
Which is kind of what they did with Venezuela.
Yeah, exactly.
I know we're not in a full fledged war with Venezuela, but we would have been if Trump had decided it.
Yeah.
And I don't think Congress would have done anything about it.
Yeah. And, especially Republican Congress is basically always chomping at the bit to get into a war. We've seen that in pretty much every Republican administration in the last couple of decades. So I don't expect them to shut this down.
And then question from Tina, how will mobile Fortify app info gathered be used?
Yeah, Mobile Fortify is an app used by ICE agents to basically scan people's faces and then get all sorts of information about them.
So that's the app they're referencing, their database?
Yeah, it's a government surveillance tool that it's a surveillance tool that accesses government surveillance databases to try and identify protesters and things like that. And like a lot of things, it's part of the police state that's being developed in the U.S. as part of the surveillance state that the tech billionaires want to control the masses and maintain control over them. And it's something that we all need to be aware of when we're at protests that you could be surveilled, and that is that's scary. But I think that's also a consequence that we have to accept dealing with right now. if we are going to ever win against this government, we can't be afraid to go to protest because they're scanning our faces.
Yeah, we can't let that stop us.
You either need to just take action to cover your face, or
it's one of the consequences
Yeah.
we just have to accept in
Yeah.
order to exercise our right to protest.
yeah, and this is also something that we can be protesting the use of it in, with our representatives and Congress members. I don't necessarily know how effective that would be,
Yeah.
but just because we should be using all avenues available to us to resist both the traditional ones and non-traditional ones. But the development of the police state has been happening since 2011 with the Patriot Act. So this is the next step in what we've been seeing for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions from the chat before we get into one of our weekly
Let's go a little
topics?
far away, can't quite see. Okay, I'm in Savannah right now. So Oki says I'm in Savannah right now. The twist in the news is insane. They're saying that it was the driver's fault for running, and ICE was not at fault. Yeah, no, again, right? ICE is acting, and I'm not surprised that that's the way that, especially if it's right wing news, is twisting that. They love to make it. Their big thing with any type of police is blaming the victim, right? Oh, well, you shouldn't have been doing this around the police, right?
Yeah.
You shouldn't have been carrying a gun at a protest. It's your fault. You got shot. Of course, when the Patriot Boys were, when the Proud Boys were protesting, they were carrying all their guns around. You didn't hear that. When there were armed people overthrowing the Capitol building on January 6th,
Right.
You didn't know.
It's a huge double
You didn't
standard.
hear them talking about not carrying weapons at a protest. It's only when the liberals do it.
Right.
So it's blaming the victim, and the idea that it is the fault of the person that was running. Of course, it is the fault of the person that was running.
Yeah.
But for killing a person and getting into a high-speed chase, but that person was running in the first place. Could have been running at least because the brutality of ICE puts people in situations where they fear for their lives.
Yes.
Right? ICE has killed people, multiple people. People die in ICE detention. So if you were in a situation where ICE is trying to detain you and you are afraid for your life, you would run too.
Of course.
Now, I don't know anything about the actual person that they were chasing and like whether they were violent or not. I don't really tend to trust what ICE says on that anyways. But ultimately, this is the fault of people who are supposed to be professionals, federal law enforcement agents, and engaging in activity that is known to be dangerous and that is discouraged by police forces across the entire United States.
Yeah.
Because of the danger to civilians.
Right.
Right. Just because you're chasing somebody does not mean that you don't have to take civilians into account, and they did not.
Right.
So it is on both the person who killed the lady directly and on the ICE agent for engaging in dangerous behavior.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're seeing just an increasing amount of human rights violations going on, especially in the ICE detention centers. One thing I wanted to talk about, because it was just devastating, was the story of Juan Nicholas, the 2-month-old baby who was sick in ICE detention and was then subsequently deported after not even getting proper medical care. What were your thoughts on that situation and how it ended?
Yeah, I mean, it's an awful story all around. It's I won't say it's really surprising, given everything that's happening in ICE detention centers and especially in the Dilley Detention Center in Texas. But yeah, we put this video out 2 days ago, yesterday, about the 2-month-old
trying to bring attention.
Yeah, what was? I'm sorry, what was his name?
His name is Juan Nicholas.
Juan Nicholas, thank you.
In the Dilley
I
Detention
keep wanting to
Center.
say Luis Ramos, but that was a 5-year-old.
Yeah, another child who was
Juan
mistreated.
Nicholas. He was also at the same center. Just yesterday we put out a video about this. That this child was 2-month-old. He's been in the detention center for 3 weeks. Detention center conditions are inhumane, unsanitary, all sorts of illness going around. Child has been sick for days, and this is an infant, mind you, 2 months old. Probably hasn't had vaccines, even if the parents wanted to, because they've been detained, and too young to get them.
Yeah.
Has been sick with extreme respiratory distress and vomiting for days, and had no access to a doctor at the detention center. There was none there when one of the local representatives visited to try and help the family. Was sent to the hospital on Monday night. Was released the same night. No infant, much less nobody, much less an infant, should be released in that time frame with the type of symptoms that they were talking about. And I don't know about him specifically, but there was another situation, similar situation, where after the child was released, they denied them their medication at the detention center. So
Yeah.
we can expect that happen too.
Yeah.
And then we found out basically last night that the government quickly deported them to over the Mexican border and basically dropped them there with $150 that they had in their commissary account, and abandoned them
Yeah.
with a deathly sick infant, because I think they didn't want the baby to die and quote be on their hands. They were, oh, we dropped them off at the border. It's not our problem anymore, so they don't have to
It's
have that story.
unthinkable.
Which if the
Yeah.
baby dies, that's on them for
Absolutely.
putting the
It's
baby in that
murder.
situation. I did see just a little while ago that the mother and child have been admitted to a hospital in Mexico. So the baby
I was
is,
hoping that
yeah,
was
the
what
baby
would
is
happen.
getting medical treatment
Yeah.
now, in Mexico, but it's just entirely inhumane treatment by DHS and ICE in the Dilley Detention Center. And this is nothing new. Core Civic, which is the company that runs these detention centers, is one of the major for-profit private prisons in the U.S. And even before we were seeing all this with ICE, all of these for-profit prisons, without fail, horrible human rights violations.
Yeah.
Right. We hear of thousands of reports of women being sexually assaulted in the prisons.
Right.
The mistreatment of children is more recent because of the specific nature of detention centers and immigrant families. But just recently, and I think in that same detention center in Dilley, there were hundreds of children that were seen to be protesting.
Right.
This was a couple of weeks ago. Were protesting because of the treatment, and DHS and ICE basically rushed all the lawyers and journalists out of the facility to try and prevent them from capturing images of that. And then more recently, it was just being reported, I think today, that after what had just happened, they went in. DHS and ICE went into that facility and basically took all of the drawings and images
That's
from the
right.
children there, so that they couldn't be released to the media about how basically how awful they were.
Yeah.
So they're destroying evidence essentially about the treatment of children in these centers. So
Yeah. I mean, let me just say, children should not be in detention centers.
Yeah.
Period. Children should not be in detention centers. I mean, hearing the story about Juan Nicholas
Yeah.
as a mother is so devastating. Knowing what a delicate situation you're in as a mother with a newborn, just being in a detention center alone is just unthinkable enough with your newborn baby. But, for his life to be at risk, with a respiratory illness and not to be able to access treatment and then to be dropped off at the Mexican border is just so cruel.
Yeah.
So cruel. I know that really, there was a lot of attention on it.
Yeah.
However, there's tons of children being held in these facilities.
Yeah.
It's not just this one baby.
There are laws on the books about how long children can be held in detention centers, right?
Well, that one of the letters
Yeah.
said of a 14-year-old girl said that she met someone, and it doesn't specify specifically that it's a child, but it's implied that it's a child who was there for 7 months.
Yeah.
That's got to be longer than is legally allowed,
Yeah,
right?
legal out is 20 days.
Yeah, please.
Because it's supposed to be that if a child is in one of these facilities, it's because the family is being moved out of the U.S. and they're trying not to separate them. Is the idea behind it, right?
Yeah.
Is that maybe a short detention is fine to keep the family together. I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah.
But the laws state 20 days, and we're seeing consistently, I think, at least 6 times longer than that, if not
Yeah.
more. These are really these are not, as the DHS claims, like temporary processing centers. These are concentration camps where they're holding people.
They are
for,
concentration camps.
long times, and they're being intentionally cruel to discourage, I think, people from coming into the U.S.
Yeah.
Both to scare people that are existently. Excuse me, I can't talk right now. I'm tired. Both to scare existing migrants in the
Yes.
U.S. to leave, to
Yeah.
voluntarily self-deport, and also to prevent people from crossing the border out of terror. This is an act of terror, right, aimed at immigrants. So,
Do you think that most Americans or people on the right are aware of this or believe that this is happening? Because you would think that like the average good person, right, could agree that these are atrocities being committed against children, just like with the Epstein files.
I think I don't have hard numbers. I'd argue that most of them are. I'd argue that it's probably split between unaware, especially the general, detached, apolitical American voter,
Going about
not
their
voter,
day.
lack of voter,
Yeah.
that is unaware because they're not following news at all.
Right.
And for MAGA, I'd say it's a combination of unaware because their news is so heavily censored. Like,
Mhm.
as I've said before, I go on conservative media all the time, and none of this is being reported.
Yeah, that's
So,
actually someone just said
yeah,
that. She says, "Gabby, I don't think they show this on the news."
yeah.
That's
So
exactly right.
they don't show it on the news, and a good portion of them are racist and want these people out of the U.S. anyways. So, it's a combination of
God,
all
imagine
the
your racism being
yeah.
so severe that you literally think that this is okay for
Yeah.
children to be treated this way. I mean,
So, it's awful. I saw someone ask in chat, how is this being allowed? And the answer is, at this point, it's being allowed because we, the people, are not stopping it. We can talk all we want
yeah,
about how awful it is, but
right,
people are not out on the streets to stop this.
right.
Um,
Just like with the Epstein
yeah.
files.
So a lot of talking. We've already seen the failure of the higher system.
Hmm.
The Congress has obviously failed. Ultimately, the people have failed because the people voted these people in power,
Yeah,
right? There are factors like gerrymandering and voter suppression, all of these things that happen, but those were not so strongly in play during this last election that the people are not responsible,
yeah, I
right?
agree.
So we put them in this position of power in the first place, either through intention, like MAGA voters, or through apathy, like typical Democratic voters, or through not educating our children.
Hmm.
Like, we talk about the youth vote for Trump. Um, and it is our responsibility to take them out of power. And the people right now are, love to talk about it, but do not want to take the risk to get out on the streets to do something about it.
I think more and
Right.
more people are willing every day.
We'll see. The next big protest is March
March
28th.
28th.
That's the next No Kings rally. And it's one of the big organizations that takes time to organize these large scale protests. And as I've said before, protests by themselves don't do anything,
Hmm.
right? Especially peaceful protests, these kinds where we just get out there for a couple of hours and we all wave our signs and do the chants and all of
And
that.
feel good.
Yeah, and feel good. But protests are a temperature check for the population on how many other people are willing to at least go outside
Yeah,
and take some risk to themselves to get out and protest
yeah,
against an increasingly militarized administration. So going to these protests is very important. We need to break at least 10 million on this next one. 12.5 would be better.
hmm,
Um, but continuing on from that, we need to start seeing more civil disobedience. We need to see really a general strike. I've said it before. I sound like a broken clock, but at minimum, we need a 1 week general strike to shut down the economy, to show to remind those in power where the power lies, and that's in the wallets of the people.
right.
And without that, we can talk all we want, but Congress is not going to change itself on its own. It's going to do it because we have forced to change upon them.
Thank you, Tracy. Thanks
Yeah.
for the love. Just looking at your guys' comments. Love reading your guys' comments. I do want to talk about the Epstein files because, of course, there's a lot happening right now with the Epstein files.
Yeah.
Multiple different news stories this week. So one of them was obviously we saw Pam Bondi, perjure herself. Is that the right term?
Yeah.
Lie under oath about all sorts of things. One of the things she lied about was saying that, there was no credible accusations against Trump in the files.
Yeah.
And, while we can all speculate on some of these FBI tips and all of that, there has been at least a few credible accusations against Trump in the files, including one from a victim who actually got a settlement from Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
So we know that she's credible enough to where she won a case. I know it's not winning a case, but getting a settlement is to some degree winning because there must have been evidence there. And she claimed that she was sexually assaulted by multiple wealthy, powerful businessmen, at Epstein's New York home.
Yeah.
And Trump was one of them. That's what it says in the FBI, case record. And so why are they not calling out Pam Bondi on this? Like, why is she being allowed to continue to run the DHS when she has clearly lied about this?
Well, I do think Pam Bondi is being called out to some degree. I mean, we have seen some of these impeachment attempts against her. So I don't want to say nothing's happening with her. She's probably at the most risk. But
But this
a
is like
large
a
a
story you
large
have to
portion
find
of
on social media. It's
but
not a news story.
a large portion of Congress right now, the controlling portion is still Republicans. There's only one Republican that is doing anything about this at all, and that's Thomas Massey.
Yeah.
Which, I've talked about him several times, and just to be clear, Thomas Massey is still a piece of shit who
Yeah.
is working to undermine the U.S., right?
He's like Marjorie Taylor
he is
Greene.
right on this one issue, and I will take that because of what the issue is. But let's
not forget.
Let's not forget that he's
Yeah.
still working 90% of the time he votes with the Trump administration,
Yeah.
right? So, which is not to say that the Democrats are not doing enough, because they're not. There's a number of things they could be doing, and they're mostly just putting on political theater.
Mhm.
But the Republicans still control Congress enough to prevent anything directly from happening,
Mhm.
and they are doing that.
Mhm.
And they are doing that because the people are allowing them to do that.
Yeah.
At this point, it all comes down to the people. We can make excuses about our congressional representatives not doing anything, and whose fault it is and whatnot. But we are the power.
Yeah.
The people, the power of the government comes from the people, and the people are complacent enough that the congressional members are complacent
Mhm.
enough to leave this in place.
I mean, do you think, like in your opinion, do
Mhm.
you think that this is a credible accusation against Trump that should be like they should be demanding further investigation on this?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if that particular story is the one I'm thinking of, I'm a little out of it, guys. That was one where the FBI actually interviewed the witness
Yeah.
of one of these tests, right? Because we've seen a lot of tips about Trump. But, I think we've all heard some of the more horrible ones, which I'm not going to repeat here. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, while we all want to jump on some of these stories,
I'm the worst of the worst.
some of them sound like they're coming from schizophrenics,
Yeah.
right? And we need to be careful which stories we're choosing so that we don't take ones that are easily discredited
Mhm.
and make our case weaker, when we need to be paying attention to the ones that are most credible.
Yeah.
And the FBI interviewing a witness is credible because it means that they saw something credible there in the first place, right?
Right.
And that's not the only case of something like that happening.
Mhm.
Even without that, as I was saying in one of our first Epstein videos, just the fact that Trump's name appears in the files a million times, according to Representative Raskin, I want to say.
Raskin, yeah.
Raskin, is, statistically,
Statistically,
is enough by itself. You don't associate with someone with Epstein and have that much association and not know what was going on.
right.
So,
And not be participating in
Yeah.
what's going on.
So, of course, she lied under oath. That's something that the Republicans and, a lot of corrupt corporate Democrats do all the time. But it goes back to the question of why are they not being held accountable? And
Right.
the answer to all of the why are they not being held accountable by Congress is because Congress people are not being held accountable by their constituents.
Mhm. That leads me into my next question, which is
Well, let's take a quick look at chat because we are
Okay, fine.
I don't want to ignore chat here just a second. Let's see. I think I saw a good one up here. Jasmine says, I have a cousin on Facebook that's been going back and forth with a Trump supporter for weeks. They do not budge. And even when you bring up Jeffrey Epstein, it's both. So this is going back to do they know about it or not? And yeah, I mean, this is a case of cult mentality, right? Where they're so far into it that to change their worldview, to change their mind would be to break down their personal identity and their worldview.
Mhm.
And you are never going to convince somebody to do that. They have to convince themselves that they want it to be broken in the first place and start asking questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Oki says my Congress people do not give a shit in Indiana. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people's Congress people are Republican, right? And this goes back to what I've said before, which is Republicans are scared of their own constituents since the Tea Party, and I think they need to be scared of Democrats too,
Mhm.
right? We which again, not necessarily calling for violence. don't go up and shoot your congressional offices, please.
But that we need to take action to put pressure on them. Yeah.
But sitting at homes and complaining online is not going to change things, and we need to be at their physical offices in DC, making it very uncomfortable for them to continue doing what they're doing.
Mhm.
And that goes kind of back to the Tea Party, what I was talking about earlier, right? The Republicans are in the position they're in now where they're scared of their constituents because what is effectively the progressive branch of their of conservatism, right? The I don't want to say the word extremist, but right, the far right. There's far left and far right, right? What is effectively the far right branch of the right
Mm-hmm.
took over the party from the ground up and made their constituents scared of them. And if we, the farther left, want to have a voice and power in the same thing, we need to be in a position where there is real accountability for Democrats to their constituents too. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
So that brings me to my next point, which is, we know that the DOJ, excuse me, is not, having any accountability. Not only did they say they're not releasing any more files, but they also put out that bogus list, with like Elvis Presley's name on it. But then we're hearing about Zorro Ranch now. So I don't fully know the story on this, but I know there's like a ranch in New Mexico that Epstein used to own, and it seems like the state is going to be investigating. Is that right?
Yeah, I've seen recent reports that there is a Senate bill. Did it pass yet? Yeah, it did pass. Passed, or they're voting on it like tomorrow or something like that. To investigate the estate. Honestly, I don't know that I expect a lot to come of that. I certainly hope it does. But the estate has been in control of the hands of a huge Trump supporter for some time now. And we don't know what type of evidence has already been destroyed intentionally.
Because he owns it.
Yeah, because
so he could go in and tamper with or remove
Yeah,
evidence.
they've owned it, had control of it for some time. It's it's not like this Jeffrey Epstein just lost the estate yesterday. Like, it's been years. And I wouldn't be surprised if the FBI tries to take over the investigation as well, just like they've done in the cases of the murders of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. So I expect
they can do that. They can overrule.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. So I'd expect interference from the federal government, and even without interference, I don't know if there's going to be evidence there. I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
And I think that the investigation needs to happen regardless, because we need all of the evidence we can get about Epstein and his connections. But I wouldn't count on it being a smoking gun. Ishira says there's allegations of bodies being buried. Yeah, that's the main thing I've been hearing. Wouldn't surprise me, but again, that's one of the things that I expect would be destroyed evidence if true.
Right, like they would be removed.
Yeah.
I really hope they find something. I kind of had hope on that one, but I mean, I feel like at least the state is trying to do something about it, when the DOJ is not.
Yeah, I mean, any action is better than none. The fact that I don't expect them to find anything doesn't mean an investigation doesn't need to happen.
Right. Okay, guys, I think we'll do one more question. I think we're getting close to an hour now.
I feel like more whistleblowers are coming out. Yeah, we've seen a lot of whistleblowers and people that I suspect are essentially whistleblowers, especially in the Epstein files that have been released and how poorly some of them have been redacted or otherwise concealed. Maybe that's just incompetence. There's certainly a lot of that going around in the Trump administration, but I could also see it being secret allies. So it's not a lost fight yet, but it does require more people in the ring, so to speak.
Yeah. All right, guys, we'll take one more question from the chat, and then we're going to go ahead and close it out.
Any thoughts on the candidates for California's governor race? Yes.
Sorry, that's our cat. That's our cat. She likes to bring out socks and cry.
Yeah. The candidates for the California governor race. Yes, I do have thoughts. The name is skipping me right now. Give me 1 second. I am, like I said, a little under the weather and brain is not fully functioning. Give me 1 second while I pull up the list so I can remember the name.
Yeah, no worries. Someone said Miso has thoughts too.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's actually Indy. Indy's the crier. But yes, she has a lot of thoughts.
Let's see. Governor.
There's a sweet baby crying in the background. Not a baby, just my little kitty.
1 second here, guys. Sorry. California.
Miso doesn't want to talk Epstein anymore. I don't blame her.
Who is it that just entered the race? There was one that just popped in.
I was going to say Indy is bringing the socks. Yeah, Becca, you know as well. That's so funny. What are you looking at?
There was a California governor candidate that just entered the race fairly recently.
Uh-huh.
Oh, you know what? I'm not. I'm
You're
thinking
thinking
of.
of something else?
I'm thinking of LA mayor. Excuse
It's
me.
okay. You need to rest.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a lot of it.
I think you're getting sick.
I might be getting sick, guys. Excuse this. Yeah. I don't think there's any like super great California governor candidates, to be honest. With the existing list, I'd probably go for Betty Yee, but I wouldn't consider that an endorsement.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's not great choices.
Thank you, Becca. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Anyhow, yeah, I think we'll wrap it up, guys. Like I said, not feeling the best tonight, so glad we made it through an hour.
Yeah. Hey, we made it. We didn't know
And
if we'd make it through the whole hour tonight with Anthony
yeah,
not feeling good, but we did it.
thank you so much for joining us. Great again to have all of you guys, especially all of our new members. We've seen a huge jump of almost 100 members in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, so exciting.
So it's very exciting to have all of you with us and to be growing this community. And again, was just able to go part time with content creation because of all of your support. So
That's right.
we hope to be a lot more active over the next.
We have
couple
been,
weeks.
and we are going to continue
adding a lot of benefits. So thank you again for continuing to support us and for joining us on the live tonight.
And if you're watching on YouTube at a later date, please consider subscribing or becoming a member to our Patreon to enjoy the lives with us and participate and ask questions during. Thank you so much, you guys. We really appreciate every single one of you. Have a great night.
See you next week.